Welcome back to the Trusted Podcast.
Today, we've got an absolute Christmas cracker of an episode for you.
And what better way to end off the year than to take you through all 15 episodes which are recorded so far, picking out the best bits for you guys.
Before we start, we just want to say thank you. As Marcus said, we've recorded nearly 15 episodes, had nearly 7,000 views on YouTube, and our community has grown to nearly 600 members. We wouldn't be here without the positive feedback that you continually give us, so a big thank you from the team at Trusted.
We've also learned so much along the way, and after reflecting, we've got a really exciting season 2 in store for you. It promised to be bigger and better than ever.
We cannot wait to share it with you. For now, though, sit back, grab an eggnog, and enjoy the episode. There's always one, isn't there?
Always
one.
Team Trusted.
Look at this.
Who would have thought when we started this in March we'd be here today?
Unbelievable. Some of the guests that we've had,
I know.
all different backgrounds. It's been an amazing journey. Meeting up with Luce as well and bringing her into the forum, working alongside her. It's been a journey, a real journey.
It's just been a whirlwind of a year. And to think we've done 15 episodes.
Yeah.
7,000 views on YouTube. Mental.
Be 8,000 after this.
Yeah.
15,000 bloopers.
Yeah. It shows you what 4 plonkers can do with Canva. You know, it's crazy. But I thought, what a way to round off the year, going over the episodes.
Yep.
Who better to start with than the OG herself, Justine Randall.
What an episode Justine was, by the way.
Unbelievable.
Our first sort of formal episode in the studio. Great guest. Amazing team behind her. And we just learnt so much about ourselves and the podcast, but also for our day jobs.
Yeah, that was baptism by fire, wasn't it, for you two doing the first ever episode?
Will, our co-founder, conveniently on holiday for the first episode, teed it up for us.
No
and we birthday.
Yeah, we had to run it ourselves. But yeah, let's cut to the episode and we'll give you some kind of commentary from our end afterwards as well.
I think it's really important if you are in a sales environment, which we definitely are. I think it's really important that when your team come to work, they know what the earning opportunity is and that they know the harder they work, the luckier they're going to get, generally speaking. So I've always been a huge fan of having very transparent remuneration, having potentially the opportunity to earn many times your basic salary and bonus if you are as successful as the best salespeople possibly can be. And I also have no issue with my sales team potentially earning more than me, because ultimately if they are earning, then the business is going to be successful too. So uncapped bonus schemes are something I'm a big fan of. Very transparent bonus schemes are something I'm a huge fan of. And having a clear line of sight between performance of the individual and performance of the overall business means that from a revenue perspective, the business will always be happy, more than happy, to pay bonuses to salespeople. So I think complete transparency would be the best way of approaching that.
Really interesting, that. Such an interesting clip. The first thing that springs to mind for me is that I think as salespeople, kind of inherently selfish, and not every person can be a good sales manager. I think you've got to have an element of humility, particularly knowing that people below you may be earning more money than you. There's a lot of kind of compassion there that you need to have as part of that.
It's interesting, again, because we saw Annabelle, obviously her view on that was selfishly she wanted to continue earning, and the step into management was a little bit more, I suppose, you've just got that, there's no definition on what you can earn necessarily. You may be reliant on a few more people in the team. I mean, obviously we've just taken our first step into management. I'd like to continue earning more, but does that mean that you are in any way losing out if your team earn more than you? Justine's hit the nail on the head. Yeah. If they are selling, then the company's doing well and the sales manager should be earning as well.
And as a salesperson, as Justine says, your destiny is decided by only you. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
As a sales manager, your team's problems then politely become your problems, and so your destiny is decided by other people. So it's not that linear career progression to always be looking for a head of sales role, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so exciting about being a BDM, though. As Justine said, your potential is unlimited. You know, straight away, like, don't look at KPIs as in I have to make 20 calls. I get to make 20 calls today. That might land me business that helped me earn more money.
Yeah.
So you can be really entrepreneurial in this job as well.
Yeah, Justine hit the nail on the head there. BDMs now can earn as much as C-suite level people if they're successful. They're the backbone of the business, the driving force of revenue. So it's
Paul Hogarth said it, didn't he? He said, if you look at your business and you filter it, best earners to the lowest earners, he would expect the top 5 of those to be represented by a sales team. I think that you mentioned about humility with Justine. Humility was probably the biggest word that we associated with Brian's episode. Let's roll the clip.
I think it's really understanding who you are as a sort of a, leader. I think that's really, really crucial. Like I said, I think a lot of managers and leaders that I had over the years had no discernible style or any real idea about what a leader was. I was very fortunate that I did an MBA, and my focus and specialism on that was leadership. And it really taught me about what it takes to be a leader, and what are those attributes, and finding your own leadership style. So when I moved into that sort of a world, it was about understanding who I was as a leader and what I wanted my style to be, understanding what that looked like from my perspective and from the team members' perspective.
I love that clip. I really love Brian's episode as a whole. I was sat here watching you two, go through it, and what a guy. I think the thing that interested me about that clip specifically is when Brian mentions that some of the managers he's had never really had a specialism. At least that's what I took from it. And you're trying to be a lot of things to a lot of people, and so because your team is so diverse as a leader, anyone in the industry everyone's different. I think when you take the steps of management, there's probably a lot of soul searching that you need to do to find whether you want to be a transformational manager, the pitfalls that come with that, and the really difficult things, the good things, or really what is your specialism.
Yeah, you can't pretend either. I think that to have that introspection, that kind of bird's eye view of his own career and what had worked well for him being managed and what hadn't worked well, and to take that into his team to put a positive influence on it. If transformational management doesn't, scratch the itch for you can't pretend. It must be knackering. So I've taken a lot from Brian. We've always had this conversation about how do you take people in your team and elevate them and lift them up and see them go from here to here, like the work that you're doing with Mike at the moment.
Yeah, and I think also a part of it is understanding that if you manage a team of 10, everybody will have different skill sets. Some people might be very diligent and organised. Some people might be a great rapport builder. So it's about recognising that you look after a diverse team, and there are many different ways to be successful. As we know, we all have different roles, different responsibilities, but we all thrive and do well.
Everyone's trying to get to the end goal, but there's so many different ways to get there. You may have someone who loves doing cold calling. You may have someone who loves doing events. There's no right or wrong way. And to mandate something that is set across a whole team, I think you do have to make it more individual for people for it to be successful.
Yeah, it's like a holistic view of stuff, because that Lou is younger. He is therefore going to need more support, enhancing experience versus you versus some of our team members who are in the latter stages of their career. They all still need support, but it's just applying the right level of support based on that person's experience and personal circumstances.
Yeah, I think as a salesperson as well, maybe if you get a new manager and they have a totally agnostic style to you, I think embrace that. I remember when I first joined Triple Point, I've never worked with a manager who was so diligent on the numbers side of things, the data. But for me, it was scary at first, but it's massively elevated my career and my capabilities. So I think just take everything.
Yeah. And you take it on board because that person is so passionate about that. Yeah. It goes back to what Will said about not faking it because it's tiring. If you're the type of person that is really diligent and into data or really into transformational management, it means your team can really buy into that.
Lean into it. Lean into the authenticity of it. And you know what? That's kind of perfect for what we're going to talk about next. Obviously, Steve Hunter, your old boss.
Yes.
I actually used this quote in a session yesterday, which is about catching people doing things right. So let's roll the clip.
I read a book years and years ago called The 1 Minute Manager. And I can't remember much of this book, but I remember it saying catch people doing something right and notice it and mention it. And I think if that's delivered genuinely, even if things as a whole aren't going positive, if you can spot those little positive shards and mention it and comment on it, I think that then just engenders to this positive outlook and a more positive culture. Plenty of, I dare say, poorer sales managers will spot people doing stuff wrong, and everybody makes mistakes, but it's how you notice that and pick up on that.
Yeah, I love that episode. And obviously I work with Steve for a number of years, so I can say he genuinely does believe in that, and it's something that I've carried into my role into management today. It's little things for me. I always say to my team, we can only control what we can control. We might have a full day of meetings, and if they cancel on us, we can't control that. It's about how we respond and react. A prime example when I was working with Steve actually was during the pandemic. So not the most ideal time for inflows, but Steve would often praise us for the continued activity, the continued meetings, keeping clients informed. And I think that's so important for salespeople to keep them motivated when perhaps, the activity is there, but the numbers aren't.
Yeah, Steve mentions those little shards, those diamonds in the rough that you find. And it can be quite easy if you're in a position where inflows aren't where you want them to be, to end up in this negative feedback loop where people feel downtrodden, the company doesn't feel like it's moving in the right direction, and it just creates this like doom and gloom atmosphere. Whereas if you can just pick out those little bits, it doesn't have to be massive. It can just be, that was a good presentation. That was a good pitch. The notes that you followed up with there are immaculate. Just catch people, buck the trend of the negativity, and it can properly change the shape of it, but it's got to be genuine. I think that's probably the big taking point from me, because otherwise it's the boy who cried wolf, and it doesn't add any authority to the compliments, because that the majority of them are meaningless.
You've got to live by it. You've got to live by it. And I think it's really nice feeling on the other end of, a manager like that, where as a salesperson, you're almost measured on a different metric. Luce, you mentioned there, if numbers aren't the way that they should be or you'd want them to be, it's almost nice just still having that pat on the back and saying, we know your output is, or your input is still top tier.
Yeah, find the good
we
news
can
story.
Control that. Find the good news story.
Yeah, some of the best moments in my career. Obviously, we get bonuses, but haven't been when the money's landed. It's when someone's pulled you to a side and kind of said, "You've done a great job there," and it just goes such a long way to hear that.
Feel valued, don't you?
You do. Which leads us on to our next guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Paul Hogarth. Not all salespeople are good managers.
So I would say a salesman's quite selfish. My wife would definitely say I'm selfish, but I literally, you're a self-centered operation on. You go back to your point about this is my fiefdom, this is my area, and I'm going to look after this, and it's going to be my profit center. Going to make you selfish. I'm going to make you think about everything that you want, and you're not really going to be considered. You're not going to consider others. You're not going to help necessarily a weaker member of the team because you just think that's their job to look after themselves. You're not there to look after. That's a salesman. That's not a sales manager. And that person will probably never become a sales manager. I think you need a certain skill set to be able to sell and be able to run your own book if you had to, but being able to support others along the way. Justine is a great version of that because she literally assists all of her BDMs and will really help them knock big cases over. And I suppose I still do that. Occasionally the guys will come and say, I could really do with you coming up to Glasgow or coming here with me because I'm just on the cusp and you can just come and finish it off for me or something like that. So I'll occasionally get rolled out. Justine will get rolled out.
Yep.
That's where kind of a sales manager comes in. That's the sort of person that could become a sales manager who isn't quite as selfish as a salesman would be, or somebody who's maturing to move on from that. Not many really good salesmen make it into sales management. It's like footballers becoming football managers, and not a lot of them are successful.
Great clip. Some good truths there by by Paul, and it cuts close to home, this one, because I don't know if many of you know, our Will Church here is now head of sales at our business where we work together. He's come in, bonuses have been slashed in half, the phone's stuck to my ear every day, the skin on my fingers is falling off my hands as well from typing so much.
Targets
So
through the roof.
Not all good salespeople can become sales
Who said he was a good salesperson?
Yeah, this is all about helping the weaker members of the team, isn't it? I'm not pointing any fingers. But no, you're right. And Paul's got a point. How do you manage that transition from something that is inherently selfish to something that is selfless? And my personal belief is that Paul's right. Not all good salespeople are good sales managers because they don't have the selflessness within them. I think, you saw Justine's point about being happy that other people can earn more than her within her team. Some people are too proud to go down that route, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if you do have something in you that says you do value metrics other than maybe just financial gain, and you do value bringing other people through, and it's not an age thing, it's not even an experience thing. Like the youngest person in my team is 36, the oldest is 58. There's a 10-year gap between me and them. So it's not an age thing, it's not an experience thing. It's just wanting to go in and improve other people's circumstances as well as your own. You've still got to maintain a bit of a selfishness to it.
I think that mentorship element, though, is what's really rewarding because, as you know, I've recently just stepped into my first management role and I'm a very selfish salesperson. But, I think for you to...
Self-awareness there, Luce. Fair play.
I think to be able to take your skills and to be able to give somebody else the opportunity to learn from them and also take the good bits and the bad bits. Like, you can help support your team and they might not adopt all of it. But I think that's really rewarding. It's very fulfilling to see somebody that you manage and mentor do a good job. And it's also a little bit more of a sustainable win. Like, we're always like, oh, we hit our target, great, it starts again. To see that continued development of people on your team, I think is such a great feeling.
We were chatting about that in the car on the way through. Like, sales is such a tiring role because you could have the best year ever. And you get to January.
Turns.
Yeah.
Okay, that, but 20%.
Let's restart.
Yeah. So, also, it depends on the way you take that fulfillment piece, which we'll come on to when we talk about Russell, is, okay, working in 1 year cycles as a BDM might be your preferred route because it gives you kind of like a short-term, medium-term view of the world, whereas if you prefer a bit more of a strategic route, which is certainly where I see myself working on 2-3 year cycles, it can scratch the itch a little bit more in that kind of world, but it really just depends on the personality. And I think that leads us on really well to the next clip, because the next clip is from Annabelle Mason-Thompson, who chose not to go into management because it didn't suit the lifestyle that she wanted for her and her family. And I think that we should be able to say that's okay. Yeah. Not everyone has to go down that linear route. Look at the work that you did on your, diagram that showed the different routes that BDMs can go. It doesn't mean that you have to go into management, then into C-suite.
And there's a reason why she's the number one BDM in the UK. Roll the clip.
I was flattered, really, that they wanted me to go for the job. And I thought, well, yeah, I probably could do the job. So I went through the interview and, the process, a couple of interviews or whatever. And they'd said, look, we would love to take a chance on you, actually. We think you'd be good. I've never done it before, etc. So they offered me the job. And I suppose I'd never thought I was going to get it, really.
Yeah.
But... which was ridiculous now I look back, because why wouldn't I have got it? But anyway, that's another story. So I sat down with my husband at the time. Now, bearing in mind, I just had a child. He was the breadwinner, I suppose, of the family anyway. It was going to be a lot more responsibility.
Yep.
I was bringing in top sales, so I was going to lose me as part of the team.
Yeah.
So it'd have to replace me. I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm going from a much more cushy number, I suppose you should say. So I was going to be learning new skills, which is all great, but it was a lot more time consuming and I was going to be getting paid less. So that was a hard sell to my husband and to me, it's like, so you can be working more hours doing something you don't know how to do. It's going to be more responsibility and they're going to pay you less. It was I just felt that it wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
Now, you could say a lot of people, if they just see that on paper, will go, you're not very ambitious. You didn't want to climb the ladder. Yeah. I genuinely didn't want to climb the ladder because obviously you go into sales management and then you start getting into director and then you're running the sales force of one of the biggest, providers in the country. Yeah. And I don't know, it's just not something I've aspired to do. Yeah. And I think what I've got to realise is that I shouldn't be embarrassed about that.
No, not at all.
I have had a wonderful career. I love my job. Yeah. And that has been good enough for me. And as we all know, the money in sales is great.
There's a reason she's the number one.
There is. There is.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness. And I think she has carved that path out for herself. And Annabelle talks a lot about still being able to give some of the really good bits about leadership, but without having that sort of feeling of not being fully invested. And like you said, we've said it about 3 or 4 times, you've got to be fully in this, whatever you do, to be really passionate about it and to get other people to buy into it. And so if Annabelle went into that, as an example, went into that leadership role and she wasn't 100%, it's really difficult to do it. So she's doing it without she's doing the mentorship and the leadership piece without the title, essentially.
How do you measure success? My version of success might be different to anybody else's. Self-awareness again, shamefully love a title. I think it does help.
Big ego.
It makes big ego. I think it does. It makes me feel like I've climbed the greasy pole a bit further up. But the reality is that success is measured differently across the entire profession. Yeah. And I think that as long as you can take some comfort knowing that you are doing right by your family, right by the business. I mean, we have this conversation all the time about, women in sales and the fact that the majority of them are in a position where they have to feel responsible for doing a job and also being a homemaker and trying to get that balance right. And I think that if that's part of your circumstances, that sometimes management isn't the next natural step, especially when you can earn an absolute killing, doing what Annabelle's been doing. I
also think naturally as salespeople as well, because we're quite driven people, we can be so focused on what's next. Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, like, oh, what's your 5-year plan for your career? And I was like, genuinely, I just in love what I'm doing now, like more of the same. I want to get better at what I do now. So sometimes it's nice just to enjoy where you're at.
On the flip side of that, when I got interviewed for Timeline, our chief commercial officer, Ed, said, what's your 5-year plan? And I gave it to him and he said, so you want my job? Then I was like, yes.
He's like, sign your contract now.
Sign the contract
but Luce, that's
you arrogant little shit.
It's a good example, Luce, of how you have been unapologetically yourself in that. My 5-year plan is I love what I do now. Yeah. And organically that's led to you taking on a
long may it
role.
Continue.
Where if you'd have forced that and gone, I want to be CCO like Mr. Church over here, maybe it wouldn't have gone your way, for that reason.
I think with the element of control as well, when you are a BDM and it's your kind of kingdom that you look after, you know exactly what you need to do. You know when you're being lazy to kind of get towards your targets at the end of the year. Change that into management and you just welcome a whole host of different problems as well, don't you? So if you're kind of comfortable in that, it is a fantastic career to keep on kind of.
It's the directness of impact, isn't it? The more you pick up the phone,
exactly,
the more your revenue will rise. Yeah. It's kind of, there's no perfect formula for it. Yeah. Whereas, and again, I'm feeling this in my own way, you're feeling this in your own way, that you can continue to push as much as you want and you can work as hard as you were doing previously. But the results are not always direct. You're always trying to kind of knock that on. And that can be really frustrating for people. Yeah. That's why it's a long-term play.
As part of that clip as well, Annabelle said, not only did she kind of worry about managing other people, she thought, I'm taking my star salesperson out of the team in me being me, going to management.
Very true.
And then I've got to bring somebody else in. We're going to find someone who's going to be able to deliver that sort of stuff as well. So,
and what I think as a person, Annabelle has seeked purpose.
Yep.
And she's found contentment in her role. She's happy with what she's got and what she's able to do and provide for her family and all the other lovely bits that come with it. Yeah. Which leads us on to our next clip from Mr. Russell Wardrop. Seek purpose and you'll find contentment. Roll the clip.
Stop chasing happiness in your life. Seek purpose. Seek purpose and you'll find contentment. and you might just get a little bit of joy, but joy is not guaranteed. And if you get joy all the time, it's probably just the magic mushrooms, right? But you see, you get a reason to get up in the morning. You give yourself a reason to get up in the morning. I don't care what it is, but that gives me a huge amount of personal satisfaction.
Very stoic from Russell there. Wouldn't expect anything less from him. I'm not sure if you've seen his LinkedIn post, but he does a stoic post every Monday. So he's constantly quoting Marcus Aurelius. But, I think he's right. I think there is a contentment in feeling useful. I think, to apply this to, well, one, financial planning, but two, to my own personal circumstances. My dad's just handed his notice in to retire after 35 years at the same business. Okay, so he's been a someone at work. The first 6 months is really easy of retirement. You're going to play every golf course that you've ever wanted to play. You're going to eat in every restaurant that you've ever wanted to eat in, and you're going to travel everywhere that you want to go in the world on holiday. Then what? Yeah. This is like that mentality of looking at Forrest Gump. He made so much money that he cut that grass for free. Yeah. There's an element of finding a usefulness and a purpose to your life to continue to drive you forward. And it's massive in your career. It's understanding really what makes you tick, because then that will drive your behaviours and leave you feeling satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots of different ways that you can look at it. There's lots of different ways you can motivate yourself, be it via helping people, the end client, financial advisors, by mentoring people. If you're financially motivated, there's kind of routes you can go down to earn good money on that side of things as well. So it's kind of finding which one works for you and honing it, I think.
Why would you be a nurse? If you are not seeking contentment through helping people, you don't do it for financial reward, you don't do it for work-life balance. There's synergies between that world and this world.
And it's a common misconception that it always leads to money. I think even with salespeople, we say, naturally you're a bit more selfish and all this, but if you, and you might think, in it for the money, which, maybe. Dig deeper though. Is it the money? Because you could sit on your arse all day and do something you really don't like and you make loads of money. If you hate it, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
No, I think it's about knowing your why. And it's like, okay, you might say money, but dig deeper, as you say. Is it money so that you can have a nice family life in the future and your children can have a nice education? It's digging deeper. And I think going back into the management side of things, if you manage a team, everybody on your team will have a different why. Some people, it might be the recognition of a title. Some people, it might be getting a better brand awareness. Like understanding the why, I think, can be really transformational.
It sounds like you've adopted the transformational management style.
I think
trying.
I think the earlier on in your career that you can probably really look at yourself and think, what is my why? The better you're going to be as a person, because you can then start to forge a path that actually works for you, rather than, we spoke about it loads, going into management or taking a better paid job elsewhere, which ends up not fulfilling you. The grass isn't always greener because the grass isn't your fulfillment.
Exactly. And this is a bit of a tangent, but I was watching a podcast clip of Bugsy Malone, the rapper.
Oh yeah,
and he said,
I always dreamed that I was going to get a Lamborghini. And at the age of 20-something, bought my first Lamborghini. And he said, as I drove off the forecourt, I thought something would happen that would change my life forever. This feeling would just envelop me, that I'd then just disappear off into the sun, and that's me complete. And he said, I drove off the forecourt and I instantly got stuck in traffic. And I thought, now what? I used to say when we were, and you still say it now, to be fair, I used to say, I'm going to be a billionaire. When I was 18, straight out of school, I used to say, I'm going to be a billionaire. Okay, you're a billionaire. Then what?
What fills your day? What makes you happy?
Then what are you going to do?
I had the exact same feeling when I had my first big bonus earlier on in my career, and I knew the money was coming, and I was like, when this lands in my bank account, like, I'm going to retire. I've done it. I'm happy here. And then it lands, and it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, what now?
And that would have changed very recently for you with the birth of Sophia.
Because
your why changes.
Yeah, exactly.
You become a little bit less selfish.
That money goes into the bank account now, and it goes straight out.
The White Horse.
Straight out.
Less cleared his tab at the White Horse.
But, it doesn't. I think your why will always change.
Yeah.
But it's being pretty self-aware as to, the last 6 months, my why has been this. Is that aligned with my greater why?
Yeah.
It's not very philosophical now. But, you know, it's all about doing something you love and recognizing why you're doing that.
Yeah.
When times get tough,
Yeah.
Are you doing it for the money? Because I guarantee you're not, because you can do something that, you know, if you earn less money but you're happier, you'll be happier overall.
I think that's a really valid point, though. It may take time to figure it out as well. It's okay to try a role and say, that wasn't for me. Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Definitely. 100%.
Money don't buy my happiness, but it buy my happiness. That's his mentality. Quotes a bit of D Block Europe.
Is that Churchill?
Yeah, I think it is. Okay, cool. So we've obviously touched a lot on the kind of the introspection and the humility and all of those kind of bits, but some of the bits that have really stood out to me over the time have been the tips that we've had from the sales trainers.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that really made me evaluate how we present ourselves as sales professionals, the presentations that we put on, was the interview with Andy Bounce. It blew me away. How mad was that at the time?
I was so jealous not to be on that one, by the way. 2 months in.
Yep.
UK's biggest sales trainer. We've landed there.
I reckon that is, aside from some of the, you know, most viewed clips, I do think the Andy Bounce name, because it spreads throughout other industries, people know him.
Yeah.
So valuable.
Yeah.
So valuable. And he added so much value.
Yeah.
What was your favourite clip?
Got to be the afters bit.
Yeah.
You know, nobody buys a personal trainer.
Yeah.
They want to lose a bit of weight.
Before we dissect it, let's cut to that clip now.
Past, the only thing your audience wants to hear is about themselves and their future. So it's like if you're a lawyer and you're doing some sale, don't talk about the fact you've won a legal award and you've been doing it for 20 years. Instead, focus on the fact that in the future, you can keep me out of jail. So I don't want the lawyer. What I want is after the lawyer, I'm not going to jail. I don't want the fancy financial products. I want to retire at 56 with more money in my pocket than I was going to have. So nobody wants the thing. They want the afters of the thing. And you think, when people talk about mortgages, they talk about wrappers and flippers and I just want to buy the house. And so what I found is the two biggest problems that most salespeople do is they talk about themselves too much and they talk about the past too much. And anyone listening to this, if your company has a sales deck, look at the first 2 or 3 slides. Are they called About Us? Does it have a map of your offices? Does it talk about the year you were founded? Does it talk about how many products you've got? Does it tell me how customer-centric you are? I probably think you're not if you're not talking about the customer. And that's the main 2 things. People talk about the wrong person and the wrong time zone.
He's so good, isn't he?
So good. I can't believe we got him in.
I know.
You lucky lot, you.
I know. And he's absolutely bang on. If you take our industry, for example, we've seen like really good financial planners out there. They're not selling wrappers. They're not selling products. They're selling that vision to the client of them walking on the beach in retirement, holding hands.
Margarita.
Exactly. And it's the same. It's the same with ourselves. I think we've seen a huge kind of change in our industry over the past 10 years where we've gone from pushing products to advisors, this is the cost, this is what it does, to being more consultative. This is how it can change your business. This is what it's going to do to you. You're going to be able to reduce admin within your business. You're going to be able to reduce costs, different things like that. So I think he's bang on there with that.
You don't buy the lawyer, do you? As Andy says, you buy the fact that you don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
Or you don't buy the car because it's got a 2-litre engine that sounds great.
Yep.
But when you pull up to the club and you look great, that's what you're selling. The emotion.
Is that why you've just bought your new car, Liv?
Yeah,
the afters.
The afters, mate.
Afters. No, he's right though. You know, and I honestly changed my entire slide deck off the back of that. You know, he's such a no frills, no bullshit kind of salesperson that it was no one cares how big your office is, no one cares how many people are in your team. They want to know, are my clients going to meet their goals if I use this service? Can I help them create that vision in their brains, as you say, of what retirement might look like? In your case, Luce, in the tax efficient space, you know, you're not buying the EIS because you want that product. You are thinking about, what can I do if I don't have to pay the dodgy government a load more tax?
I think that's why the best salespeople are the salespeople that are super consultative as well. They get under the skin of that IFA business. They understand holistically. You know, one of the things I do now when I meet an advisor, what's your business plan this year? What's a worry for you? Oh, it's retaining client assets under management. It's, you know, scaling with professional connections, because then you can actually develop a partnership and say, let me help you. I will help you achieve that goal. You want to grow your business? Well, let's go and prospect together. So I think it's about demonstrating that value add, and you get that from truly understanding what they're after.
100%. You mentioned, Will, you changed up your slide deck with the tips from Andy. I'll tell you one, man, I changed up my slide deck off the back of your interview with Eduardo.
What a guy.
How you can tell a story on the back of a napkin.
First international guest.
First international guest, first solo episode for any of us.
I was going to make
Down.
a Pitbull joke then.
Yeah, Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah. Eduardo, Repetto. I mean, we can talk about it all we want, but let the clip do the talking. Roll the clip.
We want people to succeed. If we work together, I want you to succeed. And my job is to help you succeed. That's my job. The same as your job is helping me succeed, no? But my job is to help you succeed. My job is not to take your job because I get a bigger pay. No, I don't like people that think, well, there is a pie and I want a bigger slice of the pie. I want people that think, let's make the pie bigger so that everyone gets a better slice. And that mentality is important for us. And so if you have the mentality that I want a bigger slice of the pie, I'm not going to help you. Because if I help you, you may take my slice of the pie instead of me taking your slice of the pie. If the mentality is, let's make the pie bigger, now it's different. Because if I help you, the pie is going to be bigger, and all of us will be better off.
Eduardo is an incredibly impressive guy. No one could ever take that away from him. You can just tell in that clip, he's got such a way of telling stories. And the most beautiful thing about the way Eduardo talks is he takes some of the most complex situations or products and he simplifies it so much so. I had a meeting with him in London. We went to Blacklock. I'm not sure if you've been, but it's mega. I'd recommend it. And we sat down and he started to explain about the investment process of Avantis. And I thought, okay, we've heard these fund manager talks. They spend ages talking about how they justify value and how they're trying to do things differently. And Eduardo said, pass me that napkin, wrote his investment philosophy on the back of a napkin and just took something incredibly sophisticated and broke it down for a dum-dum like me. And I just couldn't believe how well he'd done that. He's obviously done it a million times, but the power in that simplification is something that everyone in the trusted community could benefit from.
And Eduardo doesn't just talk, his vocal cords dance.
Yeah.
He's just got that rhythm of speaking where it keeps you involved.
None of that in Salford, is there?
Nah, nothing like that in Salford, lad.
Yeah, he's good. I took loads from Eduardo. One of the other things was I always said if I ever wrote a self-help book, it would be named after something that Eduardo said to me, going back to Steve's part about kind of positive mental attitude and all of that. It was sunny in London and I said, oh, well, it's probably going to rain later. And he said, that's why England's green. I thought, oh, my dad would love that.
You think about that on
British
tough Mondays, don't you, mate?
Yeah.
I think another part is making the pie bigger. And it's really interesting when you speak to someone like Eduardo, who's done so much in their career, and he's sort of telling salespeople in this instance of retract that selfishness. Eduardo wants to work with people who want to make the pie bigger and not take a bigger slice for themselves. And so the mathematical equation, I'm certainly not a maths genius, but you can make the pie bigger and keep your slice, increase the size of your slice rather than taking a bigger slice of a smaller pie. I can deal with pie. Better at pie than maths.
I like how Jack Rose talks about that on his pod, actually. He said, the one thing we have restricted as salespeople is our time. There is only so many working hours we have per week. So if you're really good, how do you make that pie bigger? If your time's restricted, you go into management.
Let's cut to that clip from Jack. Going now.
Time is a limited commodity. You can almost buy almost anything, more of anything else that you need. But time is the one thing that's consistent and allotted to all of us. And how do you scale time? How do you have the maximum impact with your time? Is something that I've thought about all through my career. And, when I started as an internal and then you go up to being, I was like a hybrid field based, and then I went into strategic partnerships. And that was because I was sitting there and thinking, well, actually by doing this, I'm impacting and influencing, bigger,
more people,
more
in the same
people
time. Yeah.
for the same amount of time. But there comes a point where your time is then capped out. It starts with culture. I think, again, coming back to it, you have to have a culture that is embedded in like a freedom to express yourself, a freedom to fail, and it being okay, and like learning and growing from your mistakes and trying different stuff. Obviously with guardrails, like in the modern world of AI, and especially working around like client information, we've got to be careful about how we use it. But as long as you provided the like really good guardrails around that, actually, I think you should allow the team to start experimenting with it.
I love that episode. It was the first one of me and you as well.
It was actually,
dynamic.
our
And
initiation.
You and Jack were on meetings in the Northwest, so I know it was a busy day for you, but we started the day off well, interviewing your own boss.
I know, that was pressure.
Yeah,
You know what made it more pressurized as well? I've got that picture of Jack keeled over in the corner because it was your first time on camera and you trotted over your words about 18 times, and the pressure was just building and building and building.
Yeah. But Jack talks about hiring potential over experience, and you've been in the seat opposite, Jack in your interview.
Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. I think something that we all struggle with is imposter syndrome, right? I was approached by Triple Point and it sounded like such a compelling opportunity, but I'd only been in investment distribution for 3 years. And I remember I sat down over dinner with Jack in Liverpool and I was like, I don't know anything about this market. I'm going to put it out there. I know everything about funds. I have no idea about what you do. And he was just like super honest. He said, if you're good enough, like you're old enough, I don't care about experience. If you're hungry and you want to work hard, come and work with me. And I mean, he's probably listening now, so I'll pay him his compliments, but it's been great for me. And you learn on the job as well, right?
You'll teach other people that as well.
Yeah. I think
exactly.
I think one of the most important things there, when we're talking about experience or attitude, you can't teach the soft skills. You can't teach someone to pick the phone up. You can't teach someone to go into the office, to have the confidence, the way they kind of carry themselves. The knowledge side of stuff, anyone can learn that over time. It'll come to anyone. So I'm a huge believer in you hire on personality, soft skills, and the rest will follow.
Look at Protura. Yeah, they had that lot of Berry Market, didn't they? Because he had
Kieran,
shout out Kieran if you're listening. because he shows the right characteristics, the right qualities, and the knowledge stuff you can overlay that. I remember when I left AJ Bell, I honestly thought to myself, there's quite a theme of arrogance here, by the way. Or let's call it naivety. I honestly thought I knew everything about financial services. Yeah, call it whatever you want. But and I remember thinking, I've got this cracked. And then you go somewhere else and your eyes are opened immediately and you think, Christ, experience comes over time. But as soon as you got someone with, talking about hiring at the moment, and it's like, I honestly don't care if they've got any experience at all. I want someone to come in and just show that they are hungry. They want the challenge. They're going to rise to it. Love those characteristics.
Yeah, and Gareth Davies talks about it loads in his episode, and we can understand what advisors look for in their BDMs. We can understand that most of it is, some of the bits that are technical are learned. The soft skills are so important. And as a young person, I'm a huge advocate, not saying I'm young, although I am for the industry, but I don't feel it. Tough paper round. As a young person who, if they wanted to come into financial services, such a good industry to be.
Dave Ferguson, respect the learning curve. Love that when he said that. That was a Nucleus motto that they had. You're going to have to allow young people to make mistakes to get the experience. So it's trying to get that balance right the whole time.
So many good bits from all of the episodes. We could have been here for another 2 hours, couldn't we?
Easily.
So easily.
So we're going to go and celebrate, I think. Have a pint of eggnog, aren't we, at the White Horse?
We certainly are.
But from everyone here at the Trusted Team, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you. Without you, we would not be here, genuinely, without all of your support, not just from the members themselves, but from our guests and those who have championed us as we've been through. We've got some incredibly exciting stuff coming up next year. Potentially some face-to-face bits, get people together, discuss some best practice, bigger guests, better production quality. We're seriously going to invest in this as we go through. So from everyone here at Trusted,
thank you.
Merry Christmas and all the best for 2026.